sewing and sharing another great free pattern with you today. It's a collared button-down blouse with statement puff sleeves. This blouse is very easy to sew and it's a nice playful twist on a sophisticated shirt. The pattern is the Melia blouse by Sewciety. I'll leave the link below so that you can print it out and sew it along with me today. Let's get started. You will need 2 front pieces mirrored and 2 strips of interfacing measuring the length of your center front by 1.5 inches. 1 back piece cut on the fold, 2 sleeves mirrored, 2 center sleeves mirrored, 2 collar stands cut on the fold and 1 cut on the fold of interfacing, 2 collars cut on the fold and 1 cut on the fold of interfacing, 2 cuffs, and 6 or 7 buttons. Mine are 1/2 inch. Let's start by doing all of our interfacing. Interface 1 collar piece, 1 collar stand, and both of your center front pieces. And then let's prepare and sew our darts on the front pieces. I transferred the dart from the pattern piece using a tracing wheel and tracing paper, and now I'll fold it in half, pinning through one dart leg and out the other, all the way up the dart. Once you've pinned both darts, take it to your sewing machine and sew from the outside to the point, leaving tails at the end so that you can tie them in knots. And now let's prepare our button plackets. I've gone ahead and pressed mine, and what you're going to do is press your center front edges for both front pieces 1/2 inch to the wrong side, give it a press, and then again 1 full inch to the wrong side and give that a press, and then you'll be ready to edge stitch. Take it to our machine and edge stitch all along this inner fold to create a nice finished placket. Pin everything in place so it doesn't shift around on you as you sew. Remember to do this for both sides. Place your 2 front pieces right sides together with your back piece and pin your shoulder and side seams. And then sew your shoulders and side seams with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now my shoulder and side seams are sewn. I also finished each seam with my serger for a nice clean finish on the inside, and I gave all the seams a good press toward the back of the garment. Now we're ready to start on our collar. Place your interfaced and non-interfaced collar pieces right sides together and pin the 3 outer edges. Sew your outer edges with a 1/2 inch seam allowance, keeping this bottom edge free. Once it's sewn, clip your corners and trim your seams by about half, and then turn it right side out and give it a really good press. Grab your interfaced collar stand piece and press the long straight edge up by a 1/2 inch. Then place the other collar stand piece on top so that they're right sides together. Then take your collar piece and place it right in between your collar stand pieces, matching your centers, and pin. Continue pinning all along these raw edges and around the curves of your collar stand. Sew your collar stands together, catching the collar in between with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Make sure that you're catching this folded edge of your interfaced collar stand piece. Trim the seam of your collar stand. Turn the collar stand right side out and give it a good press. And now let's attach it to our shirt. Find the center point of the piece of your collar stand that is not folded under. Match it right sides together with the center back of your neckline and pin. Continue pinning this part of the collar stand to the entire neckline. And then sew with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now that I've sewn on 1/2 of my collar stand, I can start pinning the interior collar stand, placing the bottom of that collar stand just over the stitching line we just created. And pin. And then we're going to sew the interior collar stand, sewing from the outside, stitching in the ditch of the outer seam, catching this interior edge as we go. Grab your center sleeve piece and baste the longer upper edge so that we can fit it with the main sleeve piece. Use the longest stitch on your machine and leave extra thread tails so that we have thread to pull for gathering. And do this for both center sleeves. Place the basted edge of your center sleeve right sides together with the bottom of your main sleeve piece, matching your centers, and pin. And then start pulling your gathers so that your center sleeve fits the bottom of your sleeve from the edge to the center. And when your gathers are even, go ahead and pin. Do the same for the other side, and do this for both sleeves. And then we're going to sew these center sleeves to the main sleeves with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and then serge. Now that our center sleeve is attached to the main sleeve, fold it in half right sides together and pin the underarm seam. Do this for both sleeves and then sew each underarm seam with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and serge. And now we're ready to attach our sleeve to the main garment. Match your sleeve right sides together with your armhole, matching your notches at the shoulder seam, your underarm seam, and the notches that indicate front and back. And then continue adding pins all the way around. And then sew your sleeves to your blouse with a 1/2 inch seam allowance and serge. The next step will be to attach the bottom of our sleeve to our sleeve cuff. Take your cuffs to your ironing board and press up one long edge by a 1/2 inch. And then fold your cuffs right sides together, matching the short edges, and pin. Sew the seams of your cuffs with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. I've marked the center of the unfolded edge of my cuff with a pin, and the center of my sleeve opposite my underarm seam with a pin, and I'm going to place the cuff on the sleeve right sides together and attach them at the seams and pins. Now I can start pulling my gathering stitches so the sleeve fits the cuff. And pin. Do this all the way around for both sleeves. Sew your cuffs to your sleeves with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Once the cuffs are sewn on, fold them in half to the inside. Allow the folded edge of your cuff to lay just over our main cuff stitches, and pin. Once we've pinned all the way around, we'll stitch from the right side, stitching in the ditch all the way around just as we did when we attached our collar. Do this for both cuffs. To hem the very bottom of our blouse, I've gone ahead and pressed up the bottom edge by 5/8 of an inch, and then I'm going to roll that hem in on itself to meet the crease and clip. Roll your hem all the way across. And then edge stitch your entire hem close to the inner fold. The very last step is to sew our buttonholes and buttons. I used a fabric marker and my pattern piece to make lines to help me guide where I'm going to place my buttonholes, and then I sew them on. All of the buttonholes are vertical, except for your collar buttonhole, which is horizontal. Now I've pinned my left placket over my right placket. Open each buttonhole and mark where I want my button to go. Now that my button placements are marked on my right placket, I'm ready to sew on my buttons. And once your buttons are sewn on, you're all done with your shirt. Thank you so much for watching this sew along. Make sure you check out my other videos for more great sewing additions to your wardrobe. I'll see you in the next video.